Hollywood Cinema, Richard Maltby, second edition. A number of contributors. Exporting America. If the United States abolished its diplomatic and consular services, kept its ships in harbour and its tourists at home, and retired from the world markets, its citizens, its problems, its towns and countrysides, its roads, motor cars, counting houses and saloons, would still be familiar in the uttermost corners of the world. The film is to America what the flag was once to Britain. By its means, Uncle Sam may hope someday, if he is not checked in time, to Americanize the world. That's the New York Morning Post, 1923, some time ago. Hollywood is an international industry, not just an American one. It achieved its dominance of the world's movie screens during World War I and consolidated its hold during the 1920s with the aggressive marketing of a product that seemed to have universal appeal. By the late 1920s, American movies occupied as much as 80% of the screen time in those countries. They had not established quotas on American imports to protect their own film production industries. The foreign market brought the American film industry approximately 35% of its total income in the late 1920s and 1930s, of which nearly 2/3 came from Europe. The scale of the American domestic market, which had about half the world's cinemas, provided the major companies with the bedrock of economic security. They experienced the movie at least to break even on its exhibition in the United States and Canada, and so they could look on foreign earnings as clear profit. Okay, we're going to move on. Bazin is a film critic. For Bazin, ambiguity was inherent in human perception. Viewing an event, we recognize that our perception of it is only partial, and that the event remains available for perceptions and interpretations different from our own. If perceptual space and time are rendered with honesty, a narrative will be obscured within the ambiguities of recalcitrant sense data. Well, we can look that word up later, can't we? I've heard it before, but I don't know what it means. If, on the other hand, narrative space and time are the object of a film, perceptual space and time will have to be systematically fragmented and manipulated. Bazin understood cinematic realism as ultimately a matter of the cinema's fidelity to the psychology of human perception, rather than involving a physical imitation of the way we see objects. To achieve that fidelity, however, required a constant technical improvement in the imitation of our perception of space and time. Some examples may help to explain this. In 1898, a travelling exhibitor commented that in a film of the Spanish-American War, he showed the pictures of the battleship in action were so real that every time a shot was fired, the women would duck their heads to let the 13-inch shells pass overhead. I'm going to move on. One definition of good acting, the one articulated by Laurence Olivier in the quotation that heads this section, assumes that acting skill should be measured by its distance between the actor's characteristics and those of the character he or she is impersonating. This argument is frequently accompanied by the claim that since the technical resources of cinema appear to do the actor's work for them, a movie performance can hardly be compared to real acting in the legitimate theatre. It is often suggested that the studio system limited star performers by typecasting them into set roles, restricting the range of their acting and leaving them to charges that many stars. Wait a few more seconds. Restricting the range of their acting to leading to charges that many stars, John Wayne is frequently mentioned, could not act, since they always played themselves. I've got a little more time. 20 more seconds. Screenwriting manuals also usually set out the aesthetic consequences of an adherence to causal logic, in terms that our own viewing experience may readily confirm. Okay, I'm going to stop.